right. All right. We are live right now, everybody.
Awesome.
Let's give 1 minute to just get everything lined up. And let me put this on stage. There we go. All right. Welcome, everyone, to the Silq webinar series. I'm Ram, founder and CEO of Silq. Thanks for joining us for this session, where we talk to people who actually make supply chains work in the wild. And I'm joined by some great friends of ours who've been friends and customers of us for a very long time. So before I kind of jump into introductions, I want to set the scene for everybody to kind of get perspective of where we are picking up this conversation from today. I'm not sure if you guys are fans of popular TV shows like Succession, but just to kind of put things in perspective, rates are up, the bookings are down, and carriers are walking around like Logan Roy in the show, where he says, I am the rate increase, and everybody has to fold and accept and kiss the ring. Importers are eyes wide open, smiling politely. They're trying to be 10 steps ahead, kind of resembling the Tom Wamsgans in the show. And then lastly, on the production side, it's a little bit of confusion over there. It's the poor cousin Greg energy, where there's a fair bit of confusion over promise from the factories, and trying to chase things down because the world opened up much quicker than everybody anticipated after the tariffs, and now everybody's playing catch up. So overall, there's a fair bit of chaos in the market, but yet some of the brands are actually thriving, and Goorin Bros is one of them, and that's why we're excited to bring them on to the show today. So a little bit about Goorin Brothers. For over 125 years, Goorin Brothers has crafted hats with timeless style and uncompromising quality. But behind the brand is supply chain that's been quietly modernizing. The folks who've been doing it are here on the call with us. That's Ryan, Clay, and Lee, three of the leaders behind Goorin's supply chain transformation. From inspection and freight to warehouse strategy, supplier coordination, they built a brand that stood the test of time, without losing what made it special along the way for the last 125 years. And that's a really hard thing to do. Why all of this matters today? Why do we need to kind of look at this as a holistic problem, supply chain, instead of looking at silos like freight and inspections? It's because margins are under pressure. According to a McKinsey report recently, logistics now accounts for up to 20% of the total revenue for leading D2C brands. That's not back office. It's frontline strategy. You got to figure out how to have better control over your freight expenses, where your warehouses are, how you fulfill customers, how soon are you able to get your inventory in DC, a whole bunch of other factors. And this is the team that's dealing with it day in and day out. So we're going to have a lot of exciting conversation, a lot of exciting insights that the team is going to share that's help them essentially get to this place. And lastly, a very quick introduction to Silq. Silq is an end-to-end freight forwarder built for how supply chains actually work today. We combine on-the-ground expertise with tech that delivers real visibility without the surprises. From production and inspections to customs and shipping, we help brands move smarter, factory floor to warehouse doors, with fewer delays and fewer surprises along the way. That's what we do. So with that, we can get into the presentation. Whether we have a few slides to kind of guide the conversation and to set the stage. We will be essentially going around the room with questions and having everybody kind of share their thoughts and exchange ideas along the way. This is meant to be a conversation. So if you're just chiming in, joining the call, please feel free to leave comments. We will definitely make time towards the end of the call to take questions that you might have along the way. So with that, I'm going to quickly get the slides started. So what we'll be discussing today are the three things that I've listed over here on the screen that you see. For a brand that stood the test of time, from legacy to leverage, how supply chains are being rebuilt in today's day and age. What are some of the things that customers have to kind of have an eye and look out for? The second thing we're going to talk about today is precision at scale. Now, again, it's 0 to 1 is a tough game, but taking a brand from 1 to N is just as hard or twice as hard. So how does data-driven operations, inspections, and structure play a role in building a brand? And lastly, investing where it counts. So, a lot of buzzwords being thrown around with AI and ML and LLMs and a whole bunch of other things. but how do you leverage all of those to scale with structure, data, and discipline? So those are the three topics we're going to be broadly covering today, and we have experts in the room who can speak to this with confidence. So without further ado, I want to bring Ryan in. Ryan is the VP of Supply Chain who's been around with Goorin for over 4 years now. Again, thank you, Ryan, for making the time today. The first question to you. Sorry.
Thanks for having us. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. No, thank you. Thank you for making the time. Really appreciate it. He's joining us from Florida today. So the first question for you, Ryan, is Goorin is a 125-year-old company that's older than the Ford Model T, that the car that reshaped American society and the auto industry. So that's a rich heritage that you guys come from. What does it take to build a brand that achieved this kind of multi-generational success, stood the test of time? I think that with the emphasis of the recent, let's call it the last 5 to 10 years, when the world of supply chain has gone through a lot of changes, what are some of the biggest turning points in that evolution that you think has helped Goorin stand the test of time?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, Goorin has done a great job at like shifting and being very dynamic and open to new ideas. And I think that's why it's lived so long, obviously. And since I've only been here for about actually 4-year anniversary comes next week. So,
congrats.
Thank you.
LinkedIn is ahead of the game a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. But our product has definitely evolved as well. I mean, I think if you go to our website today and you look, you're going to see it's very focused on the trucker hat. And under Ben, our current CEO's leadership, this was like a thought that a product idea that came up with a while back that took actually some time to actually really pick up momentum to be what it is today. We still sell fedoras, we still sell flat caps, we still have that heritage product, but what has really taken over is this, trucker hat that everybody's wearing on this call. So, how we've kind of really kind of evolved is by, when I first started, I started right during the pandemic. It was at its height. On top of that, we had actually double-digit growth. We were growing so quickly. We're trying to figure out how do we actually evolve and make sure we get product out to the customers that are, seeking it. So we've really had to take a look at our supply chain and rebuild it from scratch. We had a lot of, pieces that just weren't working well for us. We had kind of partners that weren't evolving with the times. Obviously, that's, shortly after I started is when we onboarded Silq, where, that partnership has been really great. So it's been an interesting, I think, time to live through. I think a lot of people in our industry would never have thought all the things that have happened beyond just the pandemic, trade wars on top of that, making it really difficult to navigate and maintain our margins. So we were really focused on how do we, because, once you start passing price increases along to customers, the dynamic shifts. Customers might not feel as excited about the brand. So we've had to do a lot of work to streamline and improve our margin by just improving our operational efficiencies. So, was one really good partnership that we started that gave us the visibility that we needed because we were evolving, how we fulfill our, orders for our customers. For example, for our US B2B business, we started shipping direct to them, to their warehouse, rather than going through our 3PL, adding additional costs and touch points. So, when you have customers like Lids, DTLR, Shoe Palace, they have expectations that they need a product at a certain time. So you really need to make sure that, you have clear visibility into the product flow and that, we are able to deliver on time for those customers. So, we've had to evolve a lot as we've kind of reintroduced new ideas into the business to create efficiencies.
That's awesome. No, thank you. And I think if I were to kind of, walk away with one core, takeaway from that was more along the lines of visibility and control, right? Knowing what your current situation is so you can make more informed decisions along the way. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, we're definitely very data driven. We had to do a lot of cleanup to get like clear visibility into just our own data, but we have a lot of rich data for, at least several years. We had recently done like an ERP transition from SAP where we lost some visibility, but pretty much we're using all of our data to make decisions every day. So I would agree with that completely.
That goes a very long way. Okay, that makes a ton of sense, right? And that kind of gives me a lead into the next question in some ways, right? Legacy brands necessarily have gone through, face a challenge when it comes to sustaining relevance over a long period of time. An interesting stat that I recently read was the Fortune 500 list was created in 1955, and only 49 of those 500 companies are still on that list. That's a 10% win rate over the last, let's call it 70 years or so. So again, taking a brand from making fedoras to the farm trucker hats like the one I'm wearing right now, it takes a lot of courage and a lot of foresight from the team to be able to make that directional change. Over the last let's call it 5 to 10 years, it's almost required brands to both thrive and survive all at the same time. That's kind of what the market's forced us into in some ways. So now coming to the question itself. What's the one shift in recent times that you've seen, whether it's mindset, systems, or structure, that you believe gives you the edge, right? You guys have gone through a lot of changes that we've been witness to, but for the people listening on the call, walk us through the mindset shift that you've had to, or the systems, or the structure that's helped you kind of make this change happen.
Yeah, I think where we've really benefited, when I first started, we only had one other teammate on our supply chain team, Daphne. She's our senior production manager, but we didn't have a lot of things that were getting in the way, not allowing us to change. So by building our team to where it is today, we have 7 people, including myself, that are focused on making sure everything runs efficiently. We've been able to build it out without bias, without prejudice to how things were done in the past, and being able to be open to new ideas and not having a big, we don't have a lot of, being a smaller company, it's pretty, as long as we get buy-in from our CEO and the leadership team, we can move pretty quickly with new ideas. So we've been able to be very efficient by just having a lean kind of structure and the right culture that promotes doing things differently. So
absolutely. Okay, so less bureaucracy, quick iteration, not be fearful of making mistakes, but rather making mistakes, learning fast, and moving fast is more or less
exactly
how you see it. I mean, it's not surprising that Goorin was technically founded in San Francisco. That's pretty much every startup out here, that you kind of have to have that attitude. I joke around with folks on my team sometimes, like, startups have a lot of things, but the one thing that we don't have is time. We have money, we have people, we have resources, we have the network. What we don't have is time. We got to be quick. Time is the most valuable resource, and I think it's kind of resonating and kind of makes sense as to why we're doing well as a company. We're doing well as both companies along the way. So again, to kind of add a little bit more flavor to the conversation that we're talking about, this was a recent survey on the screen that you see from PwC, talking about what the biggest changes in supply chains. Where are people's heads at? This is supply chain leaders responding to a survey necessarily. With all the changes that are happening, what is driving a lot of the change today? So again, to come into the question itself, according to PwC, what you're seeing in this report, 91% of supply chain leaders are actively rewriting their strategy right now. It's hard not to, just given the level of adversity, given the frequency of changes that are coming down the pipeline, whether it's tariff related or geopolitics or Suez Canal shutdown. There's a whole bunch of things that are making throwing a curveball at us. At Goorin, you've recently embraced inspections. It's an interesting angle that we've embraced fully as a company. We believe firmly that having boots on the ground delivers a lot of control and visibility. To your point earlier, the things that the brands need in their growth stages of their journey. So can you walk us through that experience? Give us an insider view on why you guys decided to go down this path and how it's translated into better business outcomes for Goorin.
Yeah, I mean, when I first started, we didn't, we were a very small team, and we didn't have the resources immediately to deploy, local on-site type of support that we actually have some of that now. But our customers have come to, really rely, they're expecting quality and the craftsmanship that they've gotten known to expect from us. So not having eyes on, the production, and now that we're, branching out production across China factories, Vietnam factories, and different factory partners, we've dual sourced things to try to remain resilient given when we had shutdowns in China due to the pandemic, product wasn't shipping. So we needed to have alternative sources and our supply chain nimble enough but we needed to keep controls of everything to make sure that the quality and consistency was what our customers, are known to expect from what they get from us, that was clear and that was maintained. So, I know that we had originally talked, and I believe that's how you guys were started originally doing inspections. But at the time, we were really just focused on the freight forwarding aspect. So it was great to expand that partnership and add the inspections to that, so that we had the eyes and the boots on the ground. And it actually helped us a bit too, because it made us more. We didn't really probably have all the right mechanisms in place for controlling consistency. So we had to really do a better job at documenting those, so that we could provide the inspectors the right tools to make sure that our product was being met to our standards. And in addition to that, we have a lot of different hacks. It's easy for one detail to go missing. So having visibility so that we can compare the product that was produced against the spec, against the sample, allowed us to make sure that there wasn't discrepancies in what we were intending to produce. So it's really helped us streamline that process, where we don't have to invest in the resources ourselves, train them, and then deploy them to all the different factory partners that we have all over the world. So it's been a really helpful service that we've been able to take advantage of.
No, thank you. Thank you for that. But, diving a little bit deeper into that, right? Like many years ago in my previous life, at some point, I used to ship PNY flash drives. They were popular back then when, internet was still kind of crawling and it's, getting on there. And those were very, very rampant pilferage items. Like you would just lose like 5 of them every time you get a pallet from one place to another. We had to come up with very creative ways on how you essentially, secure that supply chain to make sure we minimize pilferage. I would probably put Goorin hats to be, 10 steps ahead of that, and very, very susceptible to be picked up because they're popular. People love hats, and it's just something that. So it's interesting that you bring that angle of being able to map the product from the time a PO is placed through to the samples, to the production, through the inspections and the shipping to delivery. So you have more data points along the way to kind of minimize pilferage. That's one interesting angle that, we're starting to get a little bit more on. It was initially intended more around inspections for quality, compliance, on-time ship out, but this is an additional angle that makes a ton of sense for the kind of products that you guys make. Thank you, Ryan. That was helpful. Obviously, we were talking about a few other topics before the call kicked off on, where does China stand in the greater scheme of things. But I probably want to get to a few of the others on the call, and have some great questions for Lee and Clay as well. So we'll try to save time towards the end to answer some questions and maybe talk about the current particular transitions of trade from China to other countries. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So now, if you guys are, if the listeners and any of you guys work with freight forwarders and you essentially manage shipments for your customer, you guys know, for your company, you guys know the challenges that come with it. It can be, a lot of times you are in the receiving end of a lot of information that comes your way. A lot of times you're behind the curve because there's a lot of things happening. But, of all the people I've worked with over the years, I think Lee is one person that, is a ninja that you want on the team. She's managed to stay calm and amongst a lot of adversity. It's not been easy shipping things in the last couple of years. Again, not to sound like a broken record, from tariffs to politics to everything else that's created a lot of volatility. Lee's done an exceptional job of getting us there, and has done a phenomenal job for Goorin. She's been with them for over 2.5 years now, almost. Sorry, I think Clay has been there for 2.5 years. Lee, you've been around for over 3 years at this point.
Yeah, it's 3 years last month.
All right. Yeah, congratulations. It's amazing. So thank you, Lee, for joining. Right. So again, to kind of underpin the conversation we're going to have around operations, more tactical, you're in the weeds, you're dealing with stuff on a day-to-day basis. So the underpinning stat is that a lot of companies are waking up to the need of having more control. I think the first rodeo was during the pandemic. Everybody attempted to, and then they all kind of went back to their ways of doing things when the world settled down, and now they're having a wake-up call again. The statistic that we have is that 33% of companies that were surveyed by the same PwC report are in the middle of rebuilding the procurement, planning, coding workflows, everything from scratch, rethinking it from the ground up. Frankly, you guys were ahead of the curve. You were directly controlling this, championing this as early as 2023, and you kind of got there. So from your experience, what kind of data or signals were most critical to bring a real structure to how you manage quoting, dealing with freight coordination, consolidation, amongst other things? What's your thought process there?
So, since I've been here, we've worked really hard to narrow down like pretty accurate transit times, best routes from our factories to all of our warehouses. We have multiple that we ship to, multiple that we ship from. We monitor those regularly, make changes where needed. It helps us not only just with the shipping part of it, it helps as far back as planning and ordering as well.
Yeah.
Having all of this information and it being fairly accurate has allowed us to quote and book shipments, more efficiently. It's helped significantly reduce the risk of missed deadlines and costly expedites. It's what we've done.
That's awesome. No, this reminds me of a conversation I had with one of my managers back in the day, right? You can't fix what you don't know. I think the first step is to know the data that you need to know whether what's going right and what's going wrong. And from there, you kind of work towards iterating and getting it better. And I think nobody's done it as good as you guys have recently. What were the initial, obviously, what were the instigating points for you to even go down this path of saying, hey, I need to adopt, technology. I need to kind of have a little bit more control, because I would say that the biggest competitor to a lot of tech-enabled freight forwarders today is Microsoft Excel. It was, is, and will continue to be the most advanced tool that everybody goes to and starts with. So obviously Excel will still continue to live, but you complemented that with a few other solutions. So can you walk us through a little bit more on what was the thought process or reasoning that led you to go down this path?
Well, our shipping report is in Excel, but we use, the Silq's platform. So we can see what's scheduled to arrive, when it's scheduled to ship, maintain that it's making sure that it's on time. We're able to look for like discrepancies, changes, make sure everything's shipped on time, make sure we're not getting close to possibly missing any deadlines or outside of the delivery windows. Using the platform has also helped, like if a shipment is at risk, we see it ahead of time. We can work with the team to see if there's any alternate routes, options to try and get it to where it can deliver on time. And it helps keep, our Goorin team updated. Fair enough.
Okay, that absolutely. Those are all the intended outcomes that we essentially hope for when we set out. So again, if we were to look over your shoulder on an average Tuesday, what reports or tools are you pulling up first? Like, where does your day begin? Where would you start and say, where would you end? I know it's not the same every day. That's what makes supply chain really cool and sexy. That's why I'm in this business. But again, if you were to kind of bring a broader outline, where would it begin? Where would it end for you?
It would be our internal system as well as Silq's platform. I keep it up all day long. I open it as soon as I open my computer.
Thank you.
I rely on it heavily.
Thank you. That's exactly what we built it for, and I'm glad it's serving its intended purpose.
It is, and having a system, where you can review the shipments, helps us stay proactive.
Absolutely. So you start with your ERP, your platform, your planning tools to know, okay, this is what I kind of have to start looking at today. These are my concerns. These are my hot shipments. And then you can transition over to the Silq platform to figure out shipments across different stages, and then kind of report back to the teams. Do you have any other members on your team who are also coming on the Silq platform, or frankly, or do they come to you for pretty much all questions that they have on where?
It goes both ways.
Okay.
I think for the quick answer, they may just ask me if I know off the top of my head. But if we are going to look into a shipment, anyone on the supply chain can go in there and review a shipment or get an update. It's pretty user friendly. And there's a way, that you can talk to the Silq team if you have a question that's not readily available. Silq's pretty good. And with quick replies and updates, clear communication.
Makes sense.
Sometimes they give us updates, so it gives us updates before we even start to question the shipment.
Makes sense. No, that's the intention, right? Proactive rather than being reactive here. That brings me to essentially the last piece over here, right? Again, there's a lot of buzz. There's a lot of buzzwords being thrown around on how technology can make differences. The chart that you're seeing on the screen again, these are essentially, the green chart essentially resembles the number of companies that are using the capabilities to essentially, improve their skills or up their game necessarily, to collaborate with the partners that they work with. And then the little white chart that you see over there is how many of them actually find it to be valuable. A lot of them have kind of embarked on the journey and have not really gotten to the finish line, or at least have not fully realized the value. They're making progress. And when it comes to supply chain, it's very messy. It takes a lot of time to kind of get the system to work and do the things that you want it to do. Every supply chain is unique. It's your own unique DNA. You can't just you can't copy paste across a whole bunch of companies out there. So to bring you back to the question that I have for you, a lot of brands hit turbulence when they're scaling from a few containers to full-blown complexity. Today, you guys source from multiple countries. You also make a whole bunch of products in America. You have warehouses across the country. You're trying to get inventory into your customers' hands as quickly as possible. Instant gratification is a thing that American e-commerce is built on in some ways. So in your experience, what simple tools or habits have helped you kind of stay ahead of the curve to make sure that the team isn't left behind, your customers aren't left behind?
Well, I check our shipments daily, just
Okay.
about. I review all of them to make sure that everything's on track on what it was planned to be originally.
Mm-hmm.
When something is looking to be at risk, I reach out immediately. Hey, what can we do? What are our other options? And a lot of times we're able to bypass any potential issues. Having a system that is updated daily has been a significant impact on planning our daily shipments.
All right. It all comes out, makes sense. It all comes down to, knowing, being proactive rather than being reactive along the way. Where are some gaps, perhaps, since, I probably want to dig a little deeper because this is an area that a lot of operators essentially struggle with today, right? They work with multiple service providers, whether it's even multiple freight forwarders or one of them, and then you have your warehouses, you have your trucking companies. A lot of times assembling all of this data to get a real, true state of affairs or state of the union is a hard thing to do. How often or where are you saying across the value chain today you feel that technology adoption is the lowest? Kind of improvising on some of these questions that I'm seeing on the screen here with the data. Where do you see the gaps right now where you feel like your manual intervention is needed a lot more today?
It would probably be maybe at origin or
Okay.
Potentially. A lot of times, our factory will say something is going to be ready on the 15th, and we'll
Makes sense.
expect it to be ready on the 15th, but we don't actually get it till the 25th. So that'll throw us off as
What
well.
does that do? Like, how does that impact? Like, walk us through a little bit, right? Cost, timelines, like how does it impact, when things go south on when cargo's ready?
Well, because you have a tight window for shipping, a selling date. So if you are planning a shipment around a shipment being ready on the 15th and it doesn't actually become available till the 25th, you take the chance of missing that boat, which moves out your lead time and your delivery windows. And when you have some of our customers have very tight delivery windows, deadlines. If a product can't deliver by this date, they don't even want it anymore, technically. So when you run into stuff like that, and potentially missing those windows, it puts us into a lot of chaos.
Absolutely. So you particularly deal with a lot of vendors, right? A lot of retailers, not vendors, of course, but also retailers. You work with every major guy you can think of, from the Amazons of the world to the Lids, the Shoe Palace, to a whole bunch of companies out there. As a general trend, have you seen routing guides or requirements to deliver to these DCs getting increasingly challenging, or has it become a lot more like, hey, it's pretty standard across all these guys, it's the same workflow, or is it everybody's still unique in their own ways of accepting inventory? How soon do they make it available for sale, amongst other things?
For us, everyone seems to be pretty standard.
Okay.
They all have their own standard processes that we have to abide by.
Yeah.
And they're all different.
Yeah. Okay. They are unique in some ways. Okay.
They're all unique to them.
Okay.
So it's a lot to maintain and keep up with sometimes.
Okay. And that's a lot of complexity, right? Like, what kind of pallets? Can you have mixed pallets? Can you not have mixed pallets? Can you do all that stuff? Like, managing that complexity, it comes a lot with intuition, I guess, with the years of experience that you have, but also probably areas that you need to think about as you guys continue to scale in one or a couple of channels. You want to make sure that you have tooling to prevent that. This is an area particularly we find a lot of our customers starting to feel the pain, saying, hey, it's getting more complex. We want to be omni-channel, but it's very hard to maintain that omni-channel capability.
Yeah, and I can just interject a little bit too. A lot of the retailers have changed their requirements, or a few have changed certain requirements, which for us, we have to then adjust our fulfillment method. As Ryan mentioned, we do direct shipping. Sometimes if they change their requirements, we now can't do that, or we have to route it through our 3PL due to routing requirements, or we've always had to stay on top of those to pivot our supply chain to adapt, but also figure out what's the best from a cost standpoint for Goorin.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. This is obviously, finding distribution is one of the toughest challenges, but obviously with the brand that you guys have built, it's not surprising you have the distribution, but maintaining that is definitely it's no small it's a Herculean task, and kudos to the team for being able to do that. That actually brings me to Clay, our resident expert. Clay is the director of supply chain and operations and logistics at Goorin. He's been there for almost 2.5 years now. Clay, You're coming up on 2.5, roughly.
Yeah, I had the 2-year back in like March. So yeah, we'll have our anniversaries around the same time, I guess it looks like. But yeah.
Nice. It's time for a party. It's summer. It's nice. Let's do it. So, in my time working with Clay as part of the Goorin team, again, he's a lot of the brains behind the operation. He spends a lot of time on the data, making sure that, double checking, triple checking plans. Every time they have a big launch, they have big, initiatives, whether it's transformation that they're going through, different pieces of their supply chain. I think the effort that goes into the planning, right? If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And in this particular instance, Goorin has always been ahead of the curve. If anything, they've been on the overcautious side of making sure they have everything buttoned up. And we respect a whole lot of that. Frankly, we learn a lot along the way, and we share some of these best practices. Of course, not the proprietary ones, but at least like, hey, make sure you plan. You need to account for this much time. All of that, we use those learnings when we talk to other customers. So without further ado, Clay, welcome, and thank you for taking the time here. The focus around, the conversations with you today are going to focus more around warehousing, cost optimization, execution strategy. There's a lot that's happening again. Like I said, 20% of the D2C brand's expenses go towards logistics and fulfillment and supply chain related things. So it's no more a cost center. It has to be a strategic advantage. It should more than just, facilitate sales. It should create more opportunities. More customers should choose to buy Goorin because I can get the hat in a day. It's an enabler now. It's no more that, can you ship it to me? So with that being said, just to kind of, again, underpin the conversation, this is another report that we've kind of recently picked up where AI is a buzzword. There's a lot of activity and buzz around it, but again, companies are trying to make efforts. The full entire use case of how AI can implement or impact supply chains. People are trying different things. The chart over here shows you a lot of different pieces where executives are trying to say, this is the area that I'm trying to use AI to improve, whether it's demand planning, whether it's visibility, whether it's risk assessments. It's a whole bunch of areas. So just want to kind of put that in there. And as we kind of go into the questions here, the first question I have for you is, long before tariffs and cost pressures were a thing, you were already thinking about warehouse strategy. It's a thing that you kind of evolve over many years. Every few years you have to evolve where your customers are, and you guys were ahead of the curve. You were exploring free trade zones before it was a cool thing. Today, everybody talks about is bonded warehouses and free trade zones. You were talking about this a year and a half, 2 years ago. So what made you start looking in that direction early? How has that decision played out now that the landscape's gotten a lot more complex today?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, at Goorin, we're always trying to be innovative, adaptive, stay ahead of the curve. So we're always evaluating our fulfillment methods or our distribution network to stay ahead and, adapt to our plan for like the worst. So as you mentioned, a little over a year ago, we did start looking into alternate fulfillment strategies, and just, more specifically free trade zones or cross-border fulfillment, specifically in the Mexican market. And just to note, the current US 3PL market, I think is starting to become outpriced. Labor rates for minimum wage are going up all around the country, real estate skyrocketing. So that's driving up storage costs, fulfillment costs, and it's really starting to allow, have companies look elsewhere what they can do differently to improve costs across their supply chain. But after careful consideration and evaluation, we did decide to move our fulfillment from a US-based 3PL to a Mexican 3PL, which would unlock numerous cost advantages for Goorin. And I can go through a few of those just to kind of understand like what the benefits are of free trade zone, cross-border fulfillment, and why we made this decision. But as I just mentioned, first is just reduce fulfillment costs. Being in like a Mexican or even a Canadian labor market, it's cheaper. You can probably get better storage rates, better fulfillment pricing, which can drive better operational savings, better margins for your product. And then more specifically with like the free trade zone or even Section 321, as long as that's going to be around, you'll have those duty savings or reduced duty spend, which nowadays is a huge topic with increased tariffs, trade war, things going on around the world. So whatever you can do to reduce duty spend, that's always huge for the business. And then also just with the free trade zone, you can store goods there up to 5 years, duty free, improve your cash flow. So you're not paying for duties up front. You're paying for them as you're collecting revenue from B2B orders or D2C orders or whatever it may be. A few other benefits, with free trade zone regulations, they're highly regulated. So what's going in and coming out of them has to be spot on. So you're going to have better inventory accuracy and controls, faster go to market. So, specifically for us, a free trade zone or 3PL we are transitioning to is in the San Diego, Tijuana market, which is closer to the West Coast. Yeah. So closer to Long Beach and LA port. So we'll be able to get goods in quicker, cheaper compared to going to Dallas. So it'll be a quicker go to market for our product, get it to our customers quicker. And then lastly, optimizing shipping. Every company is different based on like outbound shipping, where it comes down to like where we're shipping. So like us being closer to California allows us to improve our outbound shipping rates because now we're within the same state ultimately from a shipping standpoint. But those are just a few of the benefits and why we decided to transition. And this sets Goorin up for a competitive future and long-term success.
Dude, I'll be honest, you just breezed through so many of those, and I know the amount of effort you guys put into researching every single piece of that. It was you just came off with 8 or 10 different, value points of why you should do what you're doing today. Yeah. But it's if that isn't proof is in the if that isn't a representation of proof is in the pudding, right? You've done the work and you've done the research, and that's phenomenal. I was trying to save myself some expletives along the way. No, but it's counterintuitive, to be very honest with you, right? Everybody is trying to run fulfillment out of Mexico. Sometimes the Section 321 was it remains as debated whether it was a good or a bad thing. I stand by the side that it probably was impacting businesses negatively in America in the long run. But setting all of that aside, I think it makes a ton of logical sense for you guys to think about putting fulfillment on right now across the border, which is practically San Diego. You can look at the other side. And some of the, again, going back to the unintended consequences of working at an FTZ, which is way more security, less pilferage, because you're going to have tighter controls of what goes in and comes out. That alone is worth a lot than the amount of money companies lose, right? And
just
not
from
to mention,
like inventory, if you're doing physical inventory accounts, just the swings you get from the addition and losses. I mean, we're hoping that'll just have the shrinkage or the finding inventory will be minimized. We'll have better accuracy, less canceled orders, things like that. So that alone will just help us better serve our customers.
Absolutely. That alone is like valuable enough, just like seeing the amount of variance that we see in the market today with inventory loss at warehouses. Obviously, then the whole bunch of other things, whether it's quicker turn times, the storage costs, the labor costs, all of those make a ton of sense. That kind of leads me into I think we covered some of it, but kind of leads me into the next question in some ways, right? Everyone's looking for ways to cut costs. There are good costs, there are bad costs. Depends on what your perspective is. But not every brand manages to do it without service or quality degradation. We see some amount of that happens. There's always going to be that challenge. So what's worked at Goorin? Any plays you've run that have unlocked savings while still keeping this tight operational control over the whole experience?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, at Goorin, we're always looking at ways to be cost efficient or optimize costs. I mean, I'm always probably having a meeting once a week, or if not with Ryan, we're talking about what we can do to cut costs or a new idea, just going through the data to see if it's optimal or not. But, I think there's 3 key areas that allow us to be successful in, cost optimization. One, and Ryan kind of touched on a little bit, but understanding the numbers, diving into the data. What does it show today? What are our metrics? And that'll help us identify where there are potential opportunities, if there's skin on the bone for reduction in cost or efficiency or improving customer service levels or the experience. If you don't understand your data, or it's not accurate, you're going to have a tough time cutting costs. The second is, constantly evaluating new opportunities, and that can be supply chains constantly changing. There's new platforms, new freight forwarders, new technology, new fulfillment methods, AI recently coming out, changing supply chains. And, you always got to see how it can potentially fit in your supply chain, or see if there is an opportunity to integrate it to reduce costs. Like, for example, recently we onboarded a new customer service platform that uses AI, and that's allowed us to reshape our customer experience or service team. So a lot of it's handled through an AI agent, and we're not having to do that work internally. And then, the last part of that, or the third pillar, I'd say, is just staying open to change, which Ryan touched on. We're constantly willing to try new things. We have to evaluate the risk, or what risk leverage we're willing to take on. But, staying open, try new things. If it doesn't work, we can always pivot or go back to what we were doing. But those 3 things particularly have allowed us to stay on top of costs, improve efficiency for our company and for our customers. Yeah.
Makes sense, man. No, absolutely. I think staying ahead of the curve, knowing what's coming down the pipe, is probably the first place to start, right? And then start tweaking and working on areas that you could find savings one thing at a time. I think that makes a ton of sense. Okay, that brings us towards the close here. And again, I know we have 15 minutes on the clock. I want to leave some time for questions, but I also want to give a quick plug for what Silq does. Once again, as I said at the beginning of the show, we're a digital freight forwarder and an inspections service provider. We actually have people on the ground in Asia who go to factories to inspect merchandise as they're getting produced, as they're getting packed, as they're getting shipped. Again, going back to the point of having integrity in your supply chain, whether it's data integrity, quality, compliance, all of that, essentially, you need to complement it. You need to have that kind of support, especially with the amount of volatility in the market. As part of the offerings we offer, like I said, shipping, we go the whole mile of offering all different modes of shipping for customers. Silq Pro is essentially the inspection services of the offering, where we put people on the ground to go inspect merchandise. And finally, we bring all of that intelligence into the Silq app, the app that Lee was referring to, Clay was referring to, and Ryan was referring to along the way, having all that information in one place so you kind of can make decisions quickly and iterate forward. So with that, we come to essentially the team that we have over here, thank you guys for making the time. I really appreciate it. Maybe for the sake of our listeners, and since we have a few more minutes while we begin before we take questions, what are you guys seeing in this trend that we're seeing in the market? And then I'll leave the floor open for all of you guys here to chime in. There is this, second time around, we're seeing this anti-China migration, supply chains moving from China to other countries. A lot of that is actually finding tailwinds in the market today. But overall, what are you seeing? What would your advice be for up and coming brands, who are just getting started or like in the early stages where their MOQs are in 50,000 units like Walmart's? I'll flip it back to you guys.
Yeah, I think a lot comes down to being open to and considering all your options. I mean, we moved to Vietnam early on when I first started working for Goorin, and obviously like the Section 301 tariffs or reasons why we did that. But and I think the world's going to start evolving. There's going to be other locations where manufacturing is going to start trending and becoming more common outside of China, unless things somehow stabilize in the near future, which it might happen, but I'm not super optimistic.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What's driving that? Quickly interjecting there. What's when you said you're not very optimistic? What's driving that concern necessarily?
I just think there's a lot of tension between the U.S. government and the current leadership in China, but that's all, I guess, in terms of I'm just speculating.
No, absolutely. No, from a business perspective, this is something that needs to get resolved sooner than later. But I was just curious to see if you're seeing any possibility of, the business outcomes playing a front and center role in this negotiation.
I was going to add too. I mean, I think it really comes down to every business. It's different. Like for us, it's fashion, apparel. So for us, it's challenging. We have to look for different countries where we can potentially manufacture, and that's where we're hesitant to see. We've looked into it. Right now, China and Vietnam are our best options. But for a company that's doing technology or healthcare products, there might be better options outside China or Vietnam. It could be Mexico, it could be South Korea, you name it. So I think it really just comes down to a company exploring all their options and looking into what they could do with their supply chain.
Absolutely. And likewise, do you also foresee the market expanding for you guys to be able to sell, Goorin hats in, frankly, every other country in the world? And how easy is it today with the platforms and the technology and the tools that are available to be able to cross-sell your products in other countries?
Yeah, I mean, for us, when I started, we weren't even doing any international e-commerce, and now I think we're shipping to 44 different countries. Okay. So being able to leverage Shopify's markets platform has allowed us to scale, utilizing our shipping carriers like DHL e-commerce. They have an international program that's allowing us to do DDP to 36 countries. Outside that, we could utilize FedEx. So we've been able to scale. We're trying to currently onboard Central and South American countries because that's a big market for our product. But yeah, all those different levers have allowed us to scale from an e-commerce standpoint, but from a B2B standpoint, we're everywhere. I'm sure Ryan, if you were going to add something.
Yeah, we have a pretty strong presence in Europe and LATAM, but there's other markets that we want to explore that we're looking into. Africa, Japan, Australia. We have a little bit of distribution there, but there's definitely some opportunities to keep pushing the brand around the world.
Yeah. Has it become easier, you would say, in the last 5 years with the advent of technology and platforms and services to be able to do that?
Yeah, I'd say a little bit.
Yeah.
All the certain market, we use a distributor model, so that kind of model is kind of maybe a little dated. I don't think it's evolved as quickly as some of the other industries, but we still utilize partners to help us distribute the product in the local markets.
Makes sense. That makes a ton of sense. And then it comes down to Lee's desk to make sure that the inventory gets there on time so they have something to sell.
Yes.
Yep. Exactly.
What's your? I mean, I think I know what's your favorite country leader ship to. It's easy to ship to, which is because this quite well in the U.S. and you've done this. But maybe if you were to name one country where you've learned a lot of experience, you have a lot of war wounds from getting inventory in, or some certain markets, maybe even at a broad level, Where would you say is the hardest right now to get inventory into and set yourself up to sell?
Probably we have. I want to say like, I don't know, because we ship into Thailand, but
some of the Asian countries have more. It's you need to be a lot more compliant and ahead of time.
Yes, absolutely.
Makes sense. Southeast Asia, that's kind of a hotspot we see as well. Is like, again, there is a lot of optimism in the market about those markets being big, but it's also like, you need to get this machine well oiled before you could kind of regularly ship inventory and run a tight ship over there. It's a big place. Absolutely.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you, guys. We're coming to the end of this. We have a quick promotion that we're essentially giving out to the listeners on the call. We recently launched a program called the Silq Edge. Now, this is, again, for brands that are in the wake of trying to figure out what their future looks like from a supply chain perspective. You're looking for new suppliers. You're moving production from, your Chinese suppliers telling you they have a factory in Malaysia, and you're not sure if it's a factory or a transshipment point, or you're looking at a new factory in Thailand or Indonesia or Vietnam. You probably want to put eyes and ears on the ground, and you want to inspect and get a better understanding of what the factory is. Is it a real factory? Do they have background checks on them? Who their other customers are? How long have they been in business? This is a collective service that we offer for a lot of our customers today. They take advantage of that. We're offering 2 of those for free for new customers coming in, and frankly, for even existing customers as they're going through this journey. This is our way of contributing to finding a better outcome for all of our customers. So we go to the factory, do a complete factory audit. We send you a detailed factory audit with a Silq Lens report that speaks to the background about that factory with all that intel that we collect from the ground. So that's one. The second thing is obviously tariffs. I don't think it's going to stop for a while. We're going to constantly be in this state of evolution. So sitting down with you, we have custom brokers on staff. We'll sit down with you, licensed folks who can kind of walk you through the use cases and understand what your tariff impact is going to be from country to country. Yes, there are plenty of tools. We have some tools as well on the platform, but there are times where you need to have that interaction with a broker to get that kind of reassurance, and that's what we're putting on the table here. For 5 of your best sellers, reach out to us. We'll love to walk you through what we can do for you. And lastly, the platform that we've been talking about endlessly over here, being able to track your shipments, right? Again, you're moving production from one country to the other. You want to have better control. You've already accounted for longer lead times. That's what the platform does. So we allow you to track shipments. You don't have to use Silq as a forwarder. You can use any other company as a freight forwarder, but still come in and be able to look at all your shipments in one place and get real-time updates, whether it's delays and stuff that Lee was talking about, being able to give you that visibility. So this is a promo that we're offering. Sign up. There should be a link in the description below that gives you essentially a quick form to fill out, and one of us will reach out to you to kind of set this up and give you access to that. So without further ado, thank you very much. Please feel free to get in touch with us. Goorin Brothers, they're one of our best customers. Phenomenal hats like the one I'm wearing. Find them in stores, find them on their website, find them on Amazon. They're doing great. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
All right.